letter from a man in deep. Said his house ain't a home and he's losing sleep. Wife cold as steel, vibe off track. Asked me how the hell to get his edge back.
Hey, what's going on, guys? We have a good sponsored stream for you today. A little bit of an unusual sponsored stream, but hey, whatever. I'm not too proud to to take a sponsored video and answer this question, but just a fair warning, we are going to talk about woo-woo today. Magic. So if you're not into that chick crack, if you're not into the mystical, go ahead and smash that like button and head on out. You're probably not going to like today's live stream today, but I'm going to have fun with it. I am not wearing my typical red pill hat because we're not talking about red pill today, typically. Really. I'm wearing my devotion hat, which you might think is religious based, and it might actually be, but what this hat is, it's a wrestling promotion out in Utah, Devotion Championship Wrestling. And so when I talk about this stuff, I like to wear this hat. So my man writes in, he says, "You actually believe in the law of attraction?" Hey, Paul, I found your channel a few months ago after a breakup, and I've been going down the rabbit hole ever since. At first, I was just watching your breakup and dating stuff, and that's what pulled me in. But then I started noticing you'd sprinkle some of the woo-woo concepts here and there. At first, I didn't know what to make of it, but it didn't sound like the typical feel-good manifestation content you see all over the internet. So I started digging deeper into your older material. I watched your whole Science of Getting Rich playlist. Wow. Okay. I mean, there's what, 17 episodes of that? I literally went chapter by chapter with the Science of Getting Rich. So that's kind of cool that it's not just out there wasting away on YouTube. Let's see here. Then I went back and binged a bunch of your old Woo Woo Wednesday episodes. Some of that stuff was different from what you talk about now. And honestly, it seems like you were saying more back then. Well, yeah, man. Like if you watched the last Woo Woo episode, the last Woo Woo Wednesday episode I did, I wanted to pivot away from that because Woo Woo Wednesday episodes honestly weren't getting a lot of views. They weren't getting that many views. That, and on top of that, I was releasing Forget That Bish at that time, which is this book. And so I had to reformat how I was doing the episodes. So Monday's episodes stayed the same. That was like, dead bedroom, relationship related content. And then Wednesdays, which were Woo Woo Wednesdays, I just decided to combine those in with Frame Fridays, because honestly, one of the big reasons why I like the woo-woo, why I like the concept of law of attraction is it makes an excellent framework for working on your mindset. And that's a big thing in the red pill space, is working on your mindset, right? Working on your mental frame. So I was like, okay, I'll sprinkle the woo-woo in a little bit on Fridays. Right. But on top of that, you have a lot of guys who gravitate towards the red pill content, and they don't believe in it. They don't believe in it at all. So when I try to talk about this stuff, they immediately mentally check out, right? They immediately check out. And then you have bigger creators calling it shit crack, or they'll actually make fun of anything spiritual. And honestly, I think a lot of guys are almost shamed in this space for believing in anything spiritual, which is sad, right? In my opinion, it's sad. And red pill often craps on the Christian church and tradcons a lot. And I do it too, because honestly, it's not, for me, it's not the like Christianity itself is the problem. A lot of it is modern church, right? Modern church and their gynocentric message, right? And then you got tradcons out here just telling everybody to get married. Just, hey, get married, bro, get married. And they don't really prepare guys for the consequences of just get married, right? Like they're essentially telling you to go in unprepared, right? And so a lot of what red pill is we'll tell you that marriage is a bad deal for men, but for some guys, especially if you are religious, that's a value of yours, right? So you're going to still want to do it. And all we're saying is, okay, this is some things you need to think about before you do that. But if you do it, then you need to try to protect yourself as best as possible, right? That's really the red pill message. And if you look at guys like Rollo, for instance, like Rollo's been married for freaking 30 years. You know what I mean? If you look at Ryan Stone, Ryan isn't legally married, as far as I know. No one really knows what's going on with Ryan because Ryan's not even his real name. You know what I mean? Like Ryan's very secretive. But as far as we know, at least the persona of Ryan Stone, he's not legally married, but he's been with the same girl for, a dozen years or so like that, right? So a lot of us are sort of monogamous minded. We just don't like getting the government involved in our relationships. But some people, like Rollo, was already married before he started writing for any of this stuff. It was already too late for him, right? But as an insider, I can tell you that the guys talking about, kind of crapping on the church and crapping on trad cons, they're not necessarily criticizing your belief in a higher power. Okay. They're criticizing the church doctrine and policies that cater towards a gynocentric social order. Right. Even if you read Rollo's fourth book, right, which is on religion. So he talks about all the world religions, the history of it, like why all the world religions are sort of heading towards this gynocentric focus. And at the end, you find out that Rollo is a Christian. Right. Rollo's a Christian guy. Rollo doesn't like the idea of spirituality though. Right. He kind of looks at that like chick crack. So anyway, so that's kind of why I moved away from it. It's just because it's not really well received in this space. And so you gotta kind of cater to your audience, right? But I did spin up a new YouTube channel last year that was fully dedicated to woo-woo, but I had to take my attention off of it to focus on this, right? So you can look it up. It's called Quantum Reality Awakening. I made it a few videos for it before really sort of taking an indefinite break. I might get back to it later, but my main focus has to be on building up this channel and like my social media around this channel and stuff like that, and all my projects around this channel, like my books and courses and stuff like that. So my man goes on, he says, what I've noticed lately is that when you talk about attraction, mindset, and outcomes, you usually frame it through psychology, paradigms, beliefs, behavior, identity. It all makes sense from a practical standpoint, but it also seems like you're holding something back. Well, yeah, right. So you have to understand that as a content creator, you have to give the audience what they want, or you don't get any views, right? So, and if you don't get views, you don't get paid. Right? And this is my full-time job. If you don't get views, you don't get paid. So you have to sort of cater to what the audience wants to some extent. And in fact, this episode probably is going to get a lot of views. I'd love to be proved wrong, though, guys. So, so do be sure to comment and like this video, would you? Okay, but the interesting thing is, the first time I got the idea to break down that there were essentially three explanations for the law of attraction was after my interview with Dr. Robert Glover. Okay, if you guys ever read Dating Essentials for Men by Dr. Robert Glover, he has a whole chapter on abundance thinking, on having an abundance mindset. And having an abundance mindset when it comes to women. And there was a lot of woo-woo in that chapter, right? He's talking about how if you're not grateful for what you have, it makes no sense for the universe to multiply it 1,000 times, right? And he talks about having a gratitude rock, which is a concept. If you ever watched the movie The Secret, they talk about having a gratitude rock and having an attitude of gratitude and all that kind of stuff. And thinking about, you know, all this kind of stuff. And the idea behind that was so that really guys don't want to, you don't want to have a scarcity mentality when you go out there dating. And so I had Dr. Robert Glover on. I was really excited about it. This guy's a doctor. He's a psychologist, you know, and he's talking about the law of attraction. There must be something to it if a doctor's talking about it. This is like my mind, my mind when it comes into it. Right. So I have him on the podcast. And I said, hey, I want to ask you about that chapter. Like, are you a law of attraction guy? And he goes, you want my honest answer? And I go, yeah, of course. And he goes, no, I think it's bullshit. And I was like, what? Like, if you read that chapter, it's like, this guy's talking about like literally like, visualizing all the kind of crap that we talk about in law of attraction. I'm like, how is this guy saying he thinks it's bullshit? Right. It makes it blew my mind. And then what I realized, I also talked to a bunch of other guys in the space who clearly believed in the law of attraction, but they either were afraid to admit it or they thought it was better explained from a psychological perspective. And I was constantly going back and forth with one of my 3% brothers back in the early days of the 3% Brotherhood. This guy named Guy Gustafson. Guy, he lives out in Israel, and he's been going through some struggles lately. And lately he and I have sort of had a little bit of a falling out. But if you guys ever took my original law of attraction, my practical law of attraction course, which is still out there. You can go to loa.comeonmanpod.com. You can take my course still. And I broke that course down into the psychological explanation. And the reason why is because I realized that a lot of people have an aversion to it. They have an aversion to the chick crack, the mysticism of it, like the spirituality of it. Like they look at it like it's this net negative. And so I was like, okay, well, how can it be explained? There's essentially 3 explanations for it, right? There's a spiritual one. So if you believe in God and stuff like that, it logically follows that this stuff could possibly happen. If God is this infinite being that's unlimited, that could do anything, why wouldn't it work, right? If you're a Christian guy, do you not believe that God can make stuff happen for you, right? So if you're a religious guy, it makes sense, right? But if you're not, if you're like an atheist, that you'll completely dismiss that idea, right? And so then it's like, okay, well, there's the quantum mechanics, quantum physics explanation of it with, like the Higgs field and the observer effect and multi-worlds theory and all this kind of stuff. It's like, okay, yeah, I can see that, but that really gets pretty complicated quickly. There's a lot of guys who look at that stuff and they're like, okay, yeah, there's this really weird stuff going on in the universe, but that can't possibly explain how like things just happen. You know what I mean? It's like, so a lot of people like to dismiss that too, which only leaves the psychological or the neuroscience explanation of it, and that I think people tend to swallow a little bit better. So I tend to explain it from that standpoint, so I don't lose the audience, right? He goes, it's like you're translating something deeper into language that's easier for skeptical guys to accept. Exactly, right? Almost like you're watering down your real views so it doesn't sound too out there. I'm not saying that is a criticism. I actually appreciate that your content stays practical, but it makes me curious about what you personally believe when the camera's off. Well, see, that's the thing. It doesn't really matter what I believe. It doesn't really matter what I believe because y'all don't come here typically. I mean, you're paying for this one, so I'll let you in on that. But most of you guys don't come here because you think you give a shit about Paul Bauer. You come here for what can I get out of this? What can I learn from the podcast? How can this impact my life for the better? So I try to tailor the content for that. Like, how can you use this material in your day-to-day life, right? But he goes, I can see why you'd think that it's being watered down, but in truth, nobody knows. And this is, I firmly believe this. Okay. Nobody really knows why stuff like law of attraction really works. Nobody does. And anybody that says they absolutely know, they might be operating from their own personal belief, and they might have had some anecdotal evidence. Like I've had anecdotal evidence that supports my belief in it, right? Like for me, I know that the law of attraction works. Why? Like the mechanics of it, there's lots of swirling theories, but no one truly understands why. Like no one truly knows, right? So it's all of it's guesswork at the end of the day. Anyway, it kind of reminds me of, I read this really good book last year sometime called the history. I think it was called The History of Heaven and Hell by Bart Ehrman. And it's a phenomenal book. Whether you're a Christian believer or an atheist, you would actually like this book, especially if you're a student of history, right? And he talks about Bart Ehrman was a Christian. He was raised in like an evangelical Christian type church with his family. He became born again when he was a teenager. And then he actually went off to seminary school, and he actually learned Greek. He learned Hebrew. He learned Aramaic and stuff like that. He actually learned the ancient languages so that he could translate the actual texts, like texts that have been found in like Nag Hammadi and the Dead Seas and stuff like that. And so he actually worked in college and became a doctor of this stuff. And he started studying this stuff. And then his thing is that looking at the original text, there was a lot of contradictions. And so he ended up becoming an atheist. But if you ever listen to his content, he's not one of those arrogant, you're stupid for believing this stuff type atheist, right? He actually speaks about the Bible, and he probably knows the Bible better than most Christians do, right? Because he's read it backwards and forwards. He's studied the ancient texts. He's compared them. He's looked at languages and how languages, what languages, like their emphasis on words and in their sentence structures, and how that actually is formed and what that really means and what they were trying to say. So he understands it really well, but he lost his faith basically. But if you ask him, he'll tell you that he's an agnostic atheist, which sounds contradictory, right? Because you're like, what do you mean agnostic atheist? And so the way he describes it, I just thought this was brilliant, right? He goes, do I believe that there's a God and like this mystical creator of the universe? No. But do I know for a fact that there isn't? Also no. Well, the word atheist, right, means you're an anti-theist, you don't believe. But an agnostic means that you just don't know. Like you don't believe there is, but you also don't know either. And he goes, well, I don't believe, but I also don't know. So therefore I'm an agnostic atheist, right? So I would say that I'm probably an agnostic spiritual person, because I truly believe that there is a God. I think there's a creator of the universe. I don't necessarily think that it's a guy in a sky sitting on a throne with a big beard and stuff like that. I don't think it's the way a lot of people think, where it's this separate guy that's separate from all of us in this separate time and space, right? But I also don't know for sure, right? Because I've never died and come back, you know what I mean? And even the guys that, if you ever, there's a YouTube channel that pops up on my timeline periodically, and it's people's near-death experiences, and a lot of them are really fascinating. A lot of them are very similar, but a lot of them are vastly different. And so it's like, okay, well, even people's near-death experiences aren't exactly the same. Now, there's a theory behind that, which I might say for another type of woo-woo episode, but I'm not going to get into it. So anyway, that's really that, right? So literally everything is based on someone's hypothesis or opinion, and there's really no known way that we can actually prove any of this. So this is why, like, anyone debating religion or debating spirituality or debating anything is kind of pointless. It's kind of pointless at the end of the day, because you can't really prove or necessarily disprove, because the absence of evidence of a God isn't necessarily proof that he doesn't exist either. You know what I mean? So you can't really debate this stuff. Okay. But even if you could, scientifically prove spirituality or an actual benevolent God, then it would cease to be spiritual. If you think about it, right? To be perfectly honest, that's kind of what's happening with quantum mechanics, showing us, or it's kind of what it's like with quantum physics, quantum mechanics, and what it's showing us, right? If you think about it, people look at this stuff like superposition and the fact that particles can sort of just appear and disappear out of nowhere, then, reappear, and like when observed by science, it just looks like an odd but just sort of a common function of the universe now, right? Now that there's like evidence of that stuff, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, but that doesn't mean there's God, right? That's just, that's just a function of the universe. Okay. So to me, though, personally, that kind of shit is just too fucking perfect. You know what I mean? It's too fucking perfect. Yeah, this just randomly happens. Nobody designed that bullshit. Like, there's no way. Like, even when you look at traditional Newtonian physics, right? It's too fucking perfect. Like, there's no way that just randomly fucking miraculously happened that way. You know, unless someone created it. Okay. Now, was it a God? Was it the spiritual being, or was it like something else that we just don't even know? Fucking no one knows, bro. No one knows, right? So to atheists, because science has shown that to be a normal phenomenon in the universe, right? Like this quantum mechanics stuff, that's just how it is. It's just not, that's just how it is. That doesn't mean there's God though, you know? So anyway, my man goes on, he says, do you actually believe in the law of attraction as something spiritual, or do you see it as more as psychology and behavior shaping outcomes, or is it just mindset and action, or do you think there's something deeper going on? Because the way you talk about it sometimes, it sounds like you believe there's more to it than just positive thinking and hard work. Like, okay, all right. So you guys really want to know? You guys really want to know what I believe? Yeah. Smash that like button if you guys really want to fucking know, if you guys really want to go down this rabbit hole. Okay. To be honest, it's evolved. It's evolved for me over the last 6 years or so. But like, I've been studying this stuff like a madman, like a fucking madman since last summer. Like, almost to the point of an obsession. Like, I'm probably annoying the shit out of Nurse Chick about this stuff, right? Right about now. But it's weird. It's funny because I really got into the stuff like most people by watching the movie The Secret, and this was years ago. Probably like my man here, right? He went through a breakup. He's trying to find his way. All sorts of shit pops up with self-help when you're fucking looking for self-help, right? And love and the secret comes up like all the time for people, and manifestation. You want to fucking magically make a dream girl appear and all that kind of fun stuff. And so anyway, like I remember, like I think I made a video fucking 5 or 6 years ago now, like maybe on TikTok or something. And a guy in the comments said, like, he was almost like, The Secret is a great place to start, but there's so much more to it. Right. And like at that time, I sort of like took it and dismissed it. Like, what are you talking about, bro? What are you talking about? And it's funny when you do go down the rabbit hole, it is almost like The Secret is a fucking gateway drug. Okay. It's a fucking gateway drug. Okay. But anyway, starting last summer, I was listening to a ton of different audiobooks. I was like, I'm kind of bored with all the dating and relationship type stuff. I'm just going to go hard in law of attraction. I haven't done that in a while. Right. So I started listening to a whole bunch of new law of attraction books that I hadn't quite read before. And most of them all sort of agree with each other in some fashion or not. Right. But then I had an epiphany while I was watching an old interview from Bob Proctor, who was one of the guys like I learned this stuff from. Like, I look at Bob Proctor as one of my mentors. Right. And I also truly believe in the concept of reading a book multiple times, right? Reading a book at least 10 to 15 times, like on repeat. And Bob Proctor, he's famous for having read Think and Grow Rich like every day for 60 years. Okay. So I had an epiphany. I decided that instead of listening to a bunch of different law of attraction books, I'd listen to a couple of shorter books on repeat. Okay. So I started with Think and Grow Rich, and I wasn't going to read Think and Grow Rich on repeat, but I decided to like revisit it. And then I started listening to The Stranger's Secret every day, which was, if you guys go back and listen to the first Frame Friday episode of the year, I read that book to you guys. If you guys don't want to get that book, it's free on YouTube. You can get the whole audiobook on YouTube, right? But I read the book to you guys in that episode. But the reason why I decided on The Stranger's Secret, one, it was short, and two, Bob Proctor said that when he actually was rich when he first got rich, and he went from making $4,000 a year and owing like $8,000 a year, right? He went from that to owning a floor cleaning business in 3 different countries, and he was making millions of dollars, and he had no idea like how he did it. He was like, how did I get here? I used to be poor shit. I'm barely educated, got kicked out of the military, all this kind of stuff. And he had this epiphany. He's like, well, I instead of like, he was reading Think and Grow Rich, but he also was listening to The Strangest Secret from Earl Nightingale daily. He made all of his employees listen to it every night when they cleaned. And so he decided to sell his business and go and start working with Earl Nightingale at Nightingale Conant Corporation. So I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to The Strangest Secret. It's a 40-minute long book, right? Or 35-minute long book. And then I was like, okay, I'm also going to revisit The Science of Getting Rich, because that's a pretty short book too. It's like 2 hours long. I'm like, I'm going to read a chapter a day for that, of that. And then I also found Feeling is the Secret by Neville Goddard. And I listened to that multiple times. I was listening to that every day too, because that's about 35 minutes long. And then I eventually dropped it off my listening list, because at first I thought it sort of contradicted Waddles, right? Wallace D. Waddles wrote The Science of Getting Rich. And Waddles said in his book, he's like, just listen to this book. Just listen to this one book multiple times, or any book that really goes hand in hand with what I'm saying here, which Think and Grow Rich does. And he goes, anything else, he's like, drop it for now until you've reached your goals. And I was like, okay, I'm going to drop Feeling is the Secret, because it's really fucking woo-woo, right? It really is a really fucking woo-woo book. But the more I listen to The Science of Getting Rich, the Feeling is, or not The Feeling is the Secret, but the Strangest Secret, and reading Think and Grow Rich. After Think and Grow Rich, I decided to revisit the Kybalion too. The more I listened, the more I gravitated back to Goddard, right? The more I listened to the stuff, the more I gravitated back to Neville Goddard. And then I listened to his book called Out of This World. And that book will fucking blow your mind. That book, and that was a short book too. That's like 35 minutes long. That book will fucking blow your mind, bro. Okay. So I listened to that shit. And then I was reviewing the Kybalion. I've been shortly, working back through the Kybalion, and I started to see how these guys were all talking about the same things. They were literally all talking about the same things, but like me, they were watering it down a bit, right? The Strangest Secret really fucking waters it down. Wallace D. Waddles it down pretty good. And if you read Think and Grow Rich, pretty much the whole beginning of the book is pretty much watered down, and he doesn't really get into the woo-woo until near the end. Like, he hints at it throughout the book, but then at the end is where he really gets into the woo-woo. But for the most part, that book is very much watered down, right? And all of them watered the shit down except for Goddard. So then I went back and I found Goddard's book called The Power of Awareness. And that, if you guys have been studying this stuff at all, if you haven't read that book, that is the best fucking book I've ever read on this stuff. That book will fucking blow your mind. I made it available in the gratitude group of the Wolfpack. So if you guys are in the Wolfpack, you can listen to that audiobook for free. I put that in there. Okay. But I started listening to The Power of Awareness, and I've listened to that book a couple of times now. And the more I listen, I think Goddard has the best explanation of all of this stuff. Okay. His definition best matches what we know of quantum mechanics. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Whenever you listen to anyone explain law of attraction from a quantum mechanics standpoint, they almost always go and talk about the law of vibration and how, like, if your mental frequencies and you get this heart and mind coherence, it sends out a frequency, and then that frequency matches other frequencies and it brings it to you and shit. And so then, of course, all the, the quantum scientists are like, that's not how any of this fucking works. Right? Okay. But we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Goddard doesn't talk about the law of attraction at all. He talks about the law of assumption. That's what he calls it. He says we live in an assumptive universe. And I'm going to try to break this down without totally losing you guys. And I might have already lost some of you guys here, right? But his assumptive universe concept also lines up almost perfectly with what the Hermetics were trying to teach us as well. It aligns really well with the idea of the Higgs field, which, if you Google it, scientists believe it permeates all of space. Okay. And it's like now an accepted fact that we live in this field, right? This field of whatever. And it aligns really well with the idea of multiple universe theory, which suggests that all possibilities exist simultaneously. Okay. So essentially, the reality that I'm experiencing is different than the reality that you're experiencing. Okay. And this aligns really well with Einstein's theory of relativity. Now, I ran across this really interesting thought experiment with the theory of relativity. Okay. And so let me try to break this down. I have this sort of written out. So I want you to imagine two observers. Okay. Observer one is standing on a railway platform as a train. He's on a railway platform as a train moves past at a very high constant velocity. So he's here. He's in a state here. There's a train going by like this. Okay. Observer two is sitting exactly in the middle of the train carriage. So he's right in the middle of this as it's going by. Okay. At the exact moment the two observers pass each other, so right about here, two bolts of lightning strike the front and the back of the moving train, leaving marks on both the train and the platform. Okay. Now, here's how each observer perceives the same event. For observer two, the guy who's on the train, this guy, the observer is stationary relative to the front and the back of the train car, which are equal distance away from him, right? So because the front and back of the train are essentially moving with him relatively, they're always in the same position, right? But to this guy, the front of the train hits first and then the back of the train goes past him, right? Separately. Since the speed of light is a constant for all observers, okay, the light from both flashes travels the same distance at the same speed and reaches observer two's eyes at the exact same time. Okay. Observer two concludes that the two lightning strikes were simultaneous. So the guy on the train sees the flash of lights happening simultaneously because of the speed of light hitting him at the exact same time. Okay. But observer one sees the train moving past them. Because the train is moving, the back of the train car is moving towards the point where the rear flash occurred, while the front of the train is moving away from the point where the front flash occurred. Since the speed of light is the same for observer one, the light from the rear flash has a shorter distance to travel and reaches observer one's eyes before the light from the front flash. Okay, so observer one concludes that the two lightning strikes were not simultaneous. The one at the back happened first, according to him, because that light hit him first. You follow me? So since my reality is different than your reality, let me also just add this too, right? So essentially, the light's hitting their eyes, and so their perception of what's happening is different. It's an interpretation in their brain. Okay. Their brain, like close your eyes. Your brain is not experiencing any of this shit, but it's what's interpreting the data that's coming in from your touch, from your vision, from your hearing, from your smell, from your taste, right? Your brain's just interpreting data that's happening out here. Okay. So to the guy on the platform, the light hit his eyes at different times. That means the lightning hits at different times, right? But the guy on the train, to him, the light hit simultaneously. So to him, the lightning was instantaneous, right? Okay. So since my reality is different than your reality, especially everything essentially everything I'm seeing is an interpretation of my mind. Those interpretations are made up of a lot of different factors. Okay. So as we just mentioned, some of it can be based off of the time it takes for light particles to reach my eyes versus the time it takes to reach your eyes. But it's also based on my beliefs and assumptions of how things work. It's based on the stories I tell myself about what's happening. Okay. And you have your own stories. You have your own stories in your head. Okay. So it's based on the information my brain thinks is important to show me, which is your reticular activating system. So if my brain doesn't tell me that that's even an important event to look at, I won't even see it. Right? But if you think lightning strikes are super important, of course you'll fucking see it. Right? But to me, it never happened. Okay. It's based on the information my brain thinks is important to show me. Okay. So it's also based on how I feel in the moment. Okay. It's based on lots of different shit. Okay. And both of you and I are having different feelings. We have different stories. We have different light particles hitting us. We have completely different experiences for the same shit happening. Okay. We're going to go down a rabbit hole here. Okay. So let me speed this up. We could spend hours on this shit. Essentially, I think the law of assumption offers a better explanation than the law of attraction. Okay. So law of attraction says that my thought vibrations mixed with your thought vibrations or the thought vibrations of money or the fucking vibrations of rocks or whatever. And those similar vibrations are attracted to each other like a magnet. I can see why like quantum, physicists and shit like that are like, I don't think that's how it works. Okay. But Goddard's explanation is simpler. He says your reality is created as you move along based purely on how you assume things are going to be. So you have an assumption of how everything's going to be. Your mind interprets it, and that's what it shows you. Okay? Am I losing you guys here? Are you guys like eyes glazing over? Like, let me say something in the chat so I know you're still listening. Okay. Now, your reality is created as you move along. The field exists in a state of infinite possibilities. And once your mind assumes an outcome, that reality is what shows up for you in the field in that particular moment in time. Okay. So you're literally traveling down a road at night and you can only see as far as your headlights are showing you. And the road is appearing to you as you assume it will be. Okay. And you guys watching this video right now, this is your assumption of how this video will play out. How this video is going to play out is how you assume it will. Okay? In another possibility, someone else is seeing something completely fucking different. Like, Paul, you're full of shit. But this is one of the reasons, right? Again, like if you're a Christian guy, like the stuff that I talk about, you don't have to dismiss it and be like, no, I go to church on Sundays. That's not how this works. Okay. This is one of the reasons if you're Christian, like in the Bible, in Matthew 6:34, we're told not to worry about tomorrow because tomorrow doesn't exist yet. All that happens is right now. Okay. You'll hear me talk about it from a psychological perspective saying the past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. All we have is the present moment. Right. Well, technically that's true. Right. Especially if you look at it from a quantum state. Right. So why does all this work? So Goddard's model and quantum mechanics aligns with what the Hermetics teach. And what they teach is the all is mind, the universal is mental. And there's a lot of quantum physicists that believe that everything is consciousness. Everything is just one solid consciousness, right? And the Hermetics taught us that the all is all and the all is in all. Okay, so when they say the all, that would be your concept of God, the creator. And he is everything. So literally, God isn't some guy in the sky in a throne with a beard and angels singing to him and shit like that. God is everything, right? God is literally this fucking cell phone right here, like the particles in the cell phone. Okay. And the all is in all, right? So this aligns with the Bible. If you're a Christian, again, the kingdom of heaven is within you. God is literally within you. Okay. And speaking of the Bible, how did God identify himself to Moses? He called himself I am. When Moses is like, who, like, what is your name? What should I call you? He goes, I am that I am. Okay. The I am is God or the all within you. Your concept of I, right? The third party observer effect I talk about from NLP, where I'm like, we have this miraculous ability to literally step back in our own minds and observe our own thoughts, almost like we're a separate person, right? That's the I. That's I am. That's God within you. Literally analyzing your thoughts right then. Okay. The I am is also your self-identity, right? Like I am a podcaster. I'm an accountant. I'm a poor man. I'm a rich man, whatever. Okay. I can say I am anything, but there's only one I am. And it's all around us, and it's within us. It permeates, penetrates, and it exists in everything. It's the one I am. Okay, that I am is what is experiencing your reality in this field of infinite possibilities, based on how you assume it will be. Okay, they're like, Paul, you're fucking crackpot. Maybe a little bit. I love it though. Anyway, the guy goes on. He says, I'll be honest, before this breakup, I would have dismissed all this as nonsense. But after what I've been through, I can see how much a man's mindset and beliefs shape his results. So I'm more open to ideas I used to roll my eyes at. Well, you might still dismiss this. That's okay. Right. But the beauty of all this, okay, the beauty of all of this is that it still works whether you believe in it or not. Okay. You don't have to believe in any of this stuff. It's fine. It happens no matter what. You have your own assumptions. You have your own paradigms. You have your own beliefs about yourself, about your capabilities, about what's possible, right? Like all that kind of stuff does create your results in life, whether you believe in spiritual or quantum or anything like that, right? So the psychology of it is also true. It's also true. Okay. But here's the thing, right? I invite you guys to test this out for a couple of months, for the next couple of months. I want you to assume things will go your way. I want you to assume things will happen as you believe they will. Okay. And if you catch yourself doubting, I want you to shake it out of your head and focus on how you want it to be. Okay. How do you want it to be? And expect it. Start expecting things to go your way. Okay. And I can explain this like a million different ways, but until you experience it, it's all just commentary. It really is. It doesn't matter whose books you read. It doesn't matter which YouTube channels you watch. It's all just commentary at the end of the day. Because like I said at the beginning, no one truly knows, right? We all have theories, and the only thing I do know for sure is I know that it works. Okay. And honestly, that's the definition of gnosis. Gnosis, as the Greeks called it, right? There's a whole sect of early Christianity. They were called the Gnostics, because the whole idea was knowing, right? Knowing like how things actually work, knowing the true essence of God. Okay. Do I consider myself a Gnostic? Not really. Do I subscribe to some of this stuff? Sure. Right. But it means to know, and to know is different than believing. And so what I would invite you guys to do is test this stuff out for yourself. And when it doesn't work for you, I want you to think back and really analyze your thoughts. Like, did I truly believe it was going to work, or was I just doubting myself the whole time? Was I thinking Paul was full of shit the whole time I was trying to make this stuff work? Or did I truly make myself believe that it would work? Right? Okay. Because once you see this stuff start working for you, once you start seeing this stuff show up for you, there's no other way for you to go, fuck, there's something to this. There's something to this. And that's where, in my opinion, that's where knowing really comes in. It's not like some fucking moment where you're levitating off of a fucking chair or something. Right? Anyway, my man says, I just don't know where the line is between self-improvement, psychology, and actual law of attraction. Brother, it doesn't have to be a line. There doesn't have to be a line, okay? Just like everything else in this space, everything else in fucking red pill, okay? Take what's useful, disregard what isn't. If you don't find any of this useful, don't tune into these episodes. Most people don't, okay? That's what I was saying at the beginning. There's a reason why I don't talk. I don't go down the rabbit hole too much, is because people in the space dismiss this stuff, okay? So they're just not into it. That's fine, okay? But like the great Ryan Stone, the world's best red pill couch, says, if you believe the moon is made out of cheese and it gets you to go to the gym, then by God, the moon's made out of fucking cheese, brother. Okay. All right. That's all I got. I hope you guys aren't like, what the fuck, Paul? Anyway, Dale says, what does Dale say here? Hold on. When I click on this, by the way, guys, when I click on this on Restream, like I click on it and then it scrolls to the very bottom. So hold on. So Dale says, this is already too woo-woo for me. All right. Hey, that dude Mikey says, what's good, bro? Omega Hashira says, sponsored video. He says, let's go. I added the fucking in there for emphasis. And then Woody says, here we go. Wade says, hey. Kamal says, just commenting so that my head pops up on the screen. Yeah, I'm testing this out. This little thing right here. I'm testing this out this week to see if I like it or if it's too distracting. I see it like popping through the whole time. I'm trying not to focus on it. Otherwise, I'm like a hey squirrel. Like I'm like a dog that sees a fucking squirrel go by. So if shit, like I get really distracted easily. So I'm like, I don't know if I like it, but whatever. If you guys like it, let me know. And then Omega says, oh, damn, things getting super woo-woo today. Or woo-woo already, yes. And then Dale says, are we not men? Chat on the screen is awesome. Okay, so Omega likes it. And then Dale says, cat on the screen. Will the woo-woo get me more kitty? Well, do you assume it will? Honestly, you know what? What's what I talk about a lot. I talk about a lot on this podcast, Dale, is a lot of guys like Rich Cooper, right? Rich, if you ever read, and you've probably read it, if you ever read the Unplug Alpha, he talks about how, like, if a woman asks him what his horoscope is, he answers very logically, like, oh, I don't believe in any of that shit, right? Well, the thing is about women is that women want to have fun. And so if you respond to a woman logically, it kills the fun. Okay, so it sort of behooves you to at least have a working knowledge of the woo-woo, because women love the fucking woo-woo. You could totally use that to your advantage when you're talking to chicks and having fun with them and, talking about the magic and shit. Like, women love that stuff, dude. William Vaughn says, what's up? Hey, good to see you, man. Good to see you from Facebook. Oh, Dale says, we care. Hey, thanks, man. If there is no God, you lose nothing. But nothing by believing. That's true. Dog is my co-pilot. But if there is a God, you lose a lot by not believing. That's true. But it's interesting. I watched. I don't really like his shit that much. God, what's his name? Bill Maher. Bill Maher did a documentary years ago shitting on religion, and one of the things that he talks about is that's almost like a shame tactic, right? Like, it's almost like a shame tactic that the church tries to use to get people to believe. It's almost like, you better believe or you might burn in hell. Like, I also don't believe in hell. I don't believe in a heaven and hell. I think if there is anything of a hell, we're living in it already. We're living in it. The physical realm is hell, and you'll only escape it once you reach a point of enlightenment, which sort of goes hand in hand with like the Buddhist beliefs. I'm not a Buddhist either, though. You know what I mean? Dar Fitness says, smash that like button. It's alpha and it is free. That is true. And then let's see here. Wade says, do tell? We need to know. More fucking cowbell. Yes. If I give a super chat, can I still get the booty shaken even though we're being all spiritual and woo-woo? I don't have this. I'd have to upload it, but yeah, fuck yeah, dude. Yeah, I'll upload I'll have to get rid of one of these other videos. Let's see here. What can we get rid of? Let's see. Which one can I spare? We have to bring that one back up. Let's see here. We can get rid of, oh, you know what? I need to re-upload this one anyway because it's not named right and it confuses the shit on me. So let me upload the boob shaking video for Dale so that he can sponsor this video. Let's see here. It's under artwork, or is it under drops? Let's see. Hold on. I got what sucks about Restream is like I only have so many uploads that I can do. It's under drops. Let's see here. Bouncing Boobs. Oh, Bouncing Boobs 2 was the best one. Okay, so we'll upload that one. If you want to sponsor or send a super chat, I got you. And then I love this, man. Hold on. Dale says, seriously, though, once you've established yourself as a confident masculine man, woo-woo goes over well with feminine energy. Chicks are all about them playful vibe. They really are. Yeah. You know what? Thor talks about that in a dominant masculine presence. He says that once you have a dominant masculine presence, women would describe it as a vibe, right? Cabal says most people in the space seem to end up aligning most with Goddard. Dude, like the more I listen to Goddard, the more I'm like, this guy either studied early quantum theory, or this is just like, you know, it just aligns too perfectly with what we're now seeing with quantum mechanics, you know, like the stuff that they're actually able to show us with like the Large Hadron Collider and stuff like that. Like Goddard was on top of this shit years ago, back in the 50s. Dar Fitness sent a 304 for a shame these whores. I will give you that, but because we are talking about the woo-woo, I'm also giving you this. Magic. And one of these.
Shame this horse.
Yes. Yes. If you don't accept one God, you need to deal with thousands of theorems, ideologies, etc., millions of gods. Yeah, sometimes. Dale says, now I'm vibrating over here. Well, you know, everything's energy, brother. Everything, nothing rests. Everything vibrates. That's what the Hermetics taught us. And let's see here. Woody says it works. Good stuff. And then Dale sent a $10 super chat. $10. If consciousness creates reality, why do humans, psych, and relationships ignore my feelings? Why do attraction cues, boundaries, and her actual choices keep cashing checks on objective reality every single time? Because that's how you assume it will be, Dale. That's why, because what's going on in your head, this is what's showing up for you. Okay. To answer that. And then you asked specifically for the bouncing titties. So here you go.
Thank you for the super chats. Boobies bouncing, can't stop that. From the east to the west, viewers, you are the best. Keep those chats coming in, let's do it all again.
And demonetized. But you also get this one. Magic. All right, man. All right, guys, that's all I got for this episode. If you guys are into this stuff, you know, I don't expect everyone to be into this stuff, but I did write this little book at the beginning of the year. It's called This Little Book Will Change Your Life. It's a very short, like if you get it on Audible, it's like a 20-minute listen. But it is a challenge. It's a 90-day challenge to test some of this stuff out. And I really modeled it a lot after what I've learned from The Strangest Secret. And there's also a very small book that I read to you guys a couple of Frame Fridays ago called It Works. And it's modeled off a lot of that kind of stuff, but I added a lot of hermetic principles into this as well. So if you guys want to check this out, it's a small little thing. You can keep it in your back pocket, or you can just listen to it on Audible. And the goal of it is to read or listen to it daily, and then create a goal card and focus on your goals. So I invite you to not take my word for any of this stuff. Formulate your own beliefs, your own assumptions, and test this stuff out. Okay. All right, guys, that's all I got for this episode. Tune into the podcast tomorrow. I'm going to do a mix of some readings, not woo-woo readings. One is a case study from the book Atomic Attraction, and the other is on the art of bantering via text from Everything I Wish I Knew When I Was 18. So if you suck at texting, You're going to want to tune into that episode tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern time. That's all we got. We'll see you tomorrow.
You don't fix a storm by folding yourself. She don't want sweet, she wants a man who won't bail. No handouts, no talks, no playing it safe. Earn your ground or get replayed.